It was on a crisp autumn evening that the cracks in my reality quietly began to widen. My wife, Claire, had claimed she was spending time with friends, so she said, leaving me alone at home with a bottle of wine and an old movie to kill the time. We'd been married for 7 years, long enough to memorize each other's quirks, routines, and subtle giveaways. But something about that night felt off. Her voice over the phone had carried a strange brightness, her laugh ringing a little too artificially. Still, I pushed the thought aside, telling myself not to read too much into it. Paranoia wouldn't help. She walked through the front door just after midnight, laughing like a teenager sneaking back home past curfew. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair tousled, and she reeked faintly of someone else's cologne. My stomach twisted, but I plastered on a smile, pretending nothing was out of place. Claire collapsed onto the couch with a carefree grin, kicking off her heels. "You seem cheerful," I said, setting my wine glass down. "Yeah, it was a fun night," she chirped, her tone high-pitched and overly enthusiastic. "Just drinks and jokes with the girls. Nothing wild." I gave a slow nod, my eyes scanning her face. "Glad to hear it." But as the night wore on, I noticed her avoiding eye contact, fingers wrapped tightly around her phone like it was a lifeline. Doubt crept in like a draft through a cracked window. Still, I stayed quiet. Confrontation wasn't my way. At least not yet. I'd watch. I'd wait. Trust was supposed to be the backbone of our marriage. At least, that's what I used to believe. The following morning, Claire hummed while she made breakfast, unusually upbeat. Her phone buzzed over and over, but she didn't glance at it once. When she finally stepped out of the room, curiosity overpowered my better judgment. My heart thumped as I picked up her phone and unlocked it. We shared passcodes, one of those little signs of trust that now felt like a cruel joke. The messages confirmed my worst fears. "Last night was incredible. I can still feel you." My vision blurred as I scrolled through the flood of texts from someone saved only as M. There were photos too, grainy shots taken in a dimly lit hotel room. Claire smiling, wine in hand, curled up against a man I didn't recognize. The ground fell out from under me. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless. Slowly, I placed the phone back where I found it, keeping my expression neutral. The anger could wait. First, I needed a plan. Claire returned, blissfully unaware of the wreckage she'd caused. She kissed my cheek and handed me a plate of eggs, smiling as if everything was perfectly normal. How could she pretend? Over the next several days, I became a shadow in my own home, watching, listening, quietly piecing together the true scope of her deception. What I initially thought was a one-night lapse turned out to be something far more involved. Claire and this M had been meeting for months, slipping away during hours I thought were ours. The rage simmered beneath the surface, but I didn't explode. Not yet. I started collecting evidence, screenshots, photos, even receipts she'd carelessly left behind. Slowly, a plan began to take form, one that brought with it a dark sense of satisfaction. On the outside, I played the role of the loving husband. I made her favorite dinners, laughed at her stories, and even proposed a weekend trip, just the two of us. Claire looked relieved, almost convinced my affection meant forgiveness. She had no idea I was constructing her downfall. The weekend getaway was the crown jewel of my scheme. I booked a cabin in the mountains, remote and serene. Claire was ecstatic, babbling about how much she needed the break. I packed everything to perfection, even my new hobby gear, photography equipment. She didn't ask any questions. That first evening felt almost cinematic. We drank wine by the fire, reminisced about the early days, even danced beneath the stars. But my mind was elsewhere, laser-focused on what was to come. The next morning, I told Claire I wanted to capture some shots of the surrounding woods and suggested she sleep in. She smiled, pulling the blankets tighter. But I didn't go outside. Instead, I set up cameras throughout the cabin, carefully choosing angles that would later tell the story I needed. When she finally woke, I suggested a hike to a scenic overlook. She hesitated but agreed. We wandered through the trails for hours, and for a fleeting moment, I almost forgot why we were there. Almost. Back at the cabin, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She glanced at the screen, irritation flashing across her face. "Work stuff," she mumbled, swiping it away. But I knew better. That evening, I made her favorite meal and kept her wine glass filled. She giggled like nothing was wrong. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, I quietly took her phone from the counter and typed out a single message to him. "Let's end this." Then I deleted the entire conversation thread, wiping the trail clean. By the time we returned home, Claire was back to her usual self, her laughter echoing off the walls. But when she reached for her purse, her smile faltered. Panic replaced it. "Where is it?" she whispered, digging through her bag. "What's wrong?" I asked, sounding genuinely concerned. "My wedding ring," she choked, eyes brimming with tears. "It's gone." "Oh no," I said softly, my voice laced with false sympathy. "When did you last have it?" She looked at me, guilt and fear twisting her features. I don't know. I must have taken it off somewhere. I had hidden it, of course. The ring, once a symbol of unity, was now part of her unraveling. The next day, I set the final act into motion. I laid out a file on the kitchen table, every damning detail arranged with clinical precision. Texts, photos, receipts, everything. When she found it, the color drained from her face. What is this?" she whispered. "The truth," I said flatly. "The part you've been hiding for months." She tried to explain, voice trembling, excuses spilling out in desperation. I raised a hand, silencing her. "I'm not interested in apologies, Claire. I want you to leave." Her eyes widened in horror. "Please, we can fix this. I'll do anything." "It's too late," I said, ice in my voice. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." I'd already met with a lawyer. Everything had been arranged swift, clean, and heavily in my favor. With the proof I'd collected, the house, the car, the savings, they were all mine. Claire never saw it coming. As she packed her bags in tears, I felt nothing but cold justice. She'd shattered the foundation of our marriage, and now she had to live with the ruins. In the weeks that followed, I picked up the pieces of my life, one at a time. Claire, on the other hand, was left to deal with the aftermath. M had ghosted her completely. Our mutual friends drifted away from her once they heard the truth. She lost everything. One quiet evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey, reflecting on the chaos of the last few months. The sting of betrayal still lingered, dull and heavy, but so did a sense of power. I had taken control. I refused to let her make me the victim. Claire's laughter no longer haunted me. It had been replaced by something else, my own. A laughter born not of bitterness, but of freedom, resilience, and the undeniable taste of revenge.